online, I'm known as JerryPH. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how to record your accordion. And in it we'll be discussing various methods and tips and tricks using techniques that I use for my own recordings. So though I'm not trying to make the quintessential how-to, I do hope that you'll learn a couple of little tricks that will take your recordings to the next level. Enjoy this video. The best way to capture the sound of an accordion that has no internal or external microphones built into it is to simply place a microphone on a mic stand and place it closer to the accordion. A good little trick, if you want to balance the left and right hand, is to simply offset where you place the microphone. A little bit closer to the bass will make the bass louder. A little bit closer to the treble side will make the treble louder. A little experimentation and you will find the sweet spot for the sound that you want. A good little trick is that we often hear a lot of the mechanicals or the clacking of our keys when we play the accordion as we record it. Something that we can do is simply place the microphone a little bit further away from the accordion and play a little bit louder. Do not pull the microphone further away and then jack up the volumes again, because we'll have the same amount of clacking noise. Plus now you are also introducing the room noise that could be also present. And this also happens if you put the microphone a little bit too far away from the accordion. You have to raise the recording levels and then you hear the room noises a lot more. So by finding that little sweet spot, you're going to have a recording that will have minimal mechanical noises from the accordion, and you should not have any external noises at all. Now, it may be impossible for you to totally eliminate the mechanical sounds of the keys and the clacking and the things that really define what an accordion is. But don't worry about it. As I just mentioned, this is part of the character of the accordion. Embrace it, learn to enjoy it. When it comes time to discuss microphones, there's all the options you need. There's hundreds of available options, from this $1 lapel microphone if you wanted to, all the way up to, and even more, past the $10,000 mark. And these are crazy expensive microphones. However, lucky for us, we don't need to go that far. One of my favorites that I like is the Shure SM58. This is a proven workhorse of a microphone. It's great for vocals, but it also has a tendency to capture the full range of an accordion just nicely. And they range anywhere from $100 to $150 each. And I've even seen them on eBay for complete kits. That's 2 microphones, all the cabling, and 2 microphone stands for well under $300. Now, if even that's a little bit too much for you, and you still want to have pretty good sound, you can go and find microphones like this Realistic 33-984. These are basically SM58 clones, and they work pretty good. As a matter of fact, the microphone that you're listening to right now is this microphone that you're looking at. And this is the one that I use when I want to use recording my accordion from an external microphone source. And they work, as I said, pretty good. Prices for this microphone, well, if you can find them, because they're kind of a discontinued product, but I found several of them on eBay from a little bit banged up to just like brand new, and they can go from $10 to $40. And I find them a really good deal, especially for the quality of sound that they do. They're really close to the quality of that Shure SM58. Internal mono is defined as a single channel. So you're going to have only one channel of sound coming out. This is a simple mono plug. It's a ring sleeve. And the way to work these is generally you plug one inside into your accordion, and you may not have the exact same plug like this one, and the other side goes into our input device. Stereo plugs are differentiated by the ability to have multiple channels. So now instead of a single channel like a mono, we have a ring tip sleeve that leaves us with two connectors. So it's a stereo channel on a ring tip sleeve or a 3 connector. And we plug this into the accordion. And this leaves us with two channels. One's usually for the left hand, one's for the right side of the accordion. And this frees us up for our input device. These are the ends that go into the input device. Now, I've always been a bit of a PC person, and I do know that Apple makes great products, but since I am a PC person and I don't know all that much about the Apple line, this is what we'll talk about for the next few seconds. Also, this is where I started my computer recording, legacy, if you will. And the day that I found out that the audio card had both outputs and inputs, in particular, a microphone input that let me record a single channel into by just using a small adapter. It was great, and it gave me the opportunity to, for the first time, to hear myself in the computer digital world via the recordings into this socket. But you can imagine my surprise when I discovered that the line input was in all actualities not a mono input, but it was a stereo input. And this is really cool because now I could capture both left and right hands in a stereo environment at the same time. But you might be asking yourself, what happens if I don't have an audio card with a microphone input, or even better, a line input? Well, that's where you need to look at audio adapters. And audio adapters come in various shapes and formats. For example, we have this USB into a stereo format, which you simply plug in, run the driver, and you have a stereo input. And this can be used on anything like laptops, which normally don't have line inputs. How about this? If you wanted something a little bit more reliable or a little bit more feature-rich, you might have something like this kind of an adapter that has both line inputs and outputs so that you could record to your computer and then hear it through your stereo system at the same time or through your headphone sets. Now, the basic premise behind having an audio adapter is for the ability to capture your audio, convert it into a digital format so that it can be recorded. And that's what these little things do. They're great. And if your computer does not have a built-in means of converting analog to digital, these are the tools that you want to get. In the previous section, we were talking about hooking up 1 or 2 channels to our computer and how to use audio interfaces for that. And there were various kinds, like the line input or an audio interface. And these are great. But what if I have multiple instruments that I want to record? Or how about if my instrument has multiple outputs? What do I do then? Or how about if I have multiple instruments with multiple outputs and I have an arranger? So what do I do about all that? I want to record all of them at the same time. Well, this is where mixers come in. And a mixer is basically a multi-input device that lets you control each channel individually and then output to a stereo or 2-channel output, which you would then connect to your line in or your audio interface. And mixers come in small sizes, like for example this one, which has only 6 channels, or they come bigger, like this one. It has 16 inputs, and you can get more. You can go 32, 24, 64 input channels. And then you could record to your heart's content if you really wanted to, right? But how do you connect these in? Well, there's a couple of different ways. In my method with my sound card, I basically just take this special little cable and connect it to the mixer. Let me show you how. First, we just take this little adapter that we have here, and then we bring it over to our mixer. And from here, we can see the adapter has a couple of different kinds of adapters on it. So in this case, we have the stereo output and the phono outputs. And on top of the phono outputs, I have a phono to 1/4 inch jack adapter. And this goes simply into the section where I have my outputs. So I'm going to put the white into the left, my red goes into the right. And this part would go into my audio interface or into the line input of the computer. So here you see in this very under quality dark video taken in a dark location, all it takes to take that little stereo connector, and you put it into the correct line input of your computer. And then you're ready to start to receive all that wonderful data from your music. Now, just to let you know, there are some mixers that do have an audio interface built into them. Like this phone, for example. You can have up to 12 inputs and then connect it via USB directly into your USB port and capture it directly to your computer. This section on software is going to be quite short. I'm just going to basically talk about the 3 software that I use primarily and which ones I prefer. Now, also taking into consideration that not everyone uses the software that I use, the first one I'm going to discuss is one that I don't actually use. Let's start off with Audacity. Audacity is a free program and it does a lot. Probably does what 75 or 80% of the people will ever need. And it's free. That's one of the best things about it. It's easy to use also. Some people say it's a little bit more complex, but you know what? Pretty much all audio editing software is complex to some level or another. Others are a little bit more complex, others are a little bit less complex, but they all have a learning curve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recommend that if you're going to start out with this, Audacity is definitely the one to start off with. I did not start off with Audacity. I started off with Adobe Audition, and that was back in the version 1.0 and 1.5 when they first came out. And because I used that for so long, I'm using to this day Audacity CS6, and I'm very comfortable with it. But I think that my first choice amongst all audio editing programs on the market today, it has to be Reaper. Reaper is probably one of the most complex applications out there. It does so much, and yet it's very easy to use. At the very least, it's no harder to use than Adobe Audition or Audacity. And they have an incredible support structure. They have on YouTube dozens of videos that will walk you from the simplest things to the most complex things, and it's taught very intuitively by a very good instructor. So in terms of my picks, if you're just starting out and you don't have the budget, Audacity is the one that you want. Me, I'm using Adobe Audition, and again, it's because I like it, I'm used to it, I'm comfortable with it, and that's actually what I'm using to record this video with. And for me, in terms of applications that I like today, Reaper for me has to be number 1, and I'll tell you why. Adobe Audition, as much as I like it, does not record MIDI. And that's a big setback for some people who need MIDI, and that's something that I'm going to be looking at in the future in doing. And Reaper has absolutely no problems handling MIDI. So it has that feature built into it, and it's something if you need, it's there. Okay, so those are my 3 choices in this section. Number 1 spot for beginners, Audacity. If you're not using Audacity, you're going to use Reaper. Okay, and Reaper is, just to let you know, Reaper is not cheap, but it has an incredibly long evaluation period. And just to let you know the price is extremely cheap. For non-professional use, you're looking at about $60 US. And even for professional use, it's not that much more. So it's a great app, super versatile, nice interface, easy to use, no harder than Audacity, and it has so much more. For me personally, because I've stuck with it for so long, Adobe Audition is what I use for the most part, until the day that I need MIDI, in which case I'm jumping over to Reaper. And that's my take on software. All right, we're going to take a look at just basically doing some setup and how we would work the audio levels for proper gain structure. Now there's all kinds of videos out there, especially on YouTube or Vimeo, that talk about gain structure in great detail. But for now, we'll just show you the very basics. Okay, so if you remember, we have these cables going into the line input of your computer, or they're going into the line in of your audio interface. The next thing we're going to do is plug in the other side of this microphone, which is this here. We're going to select a line input that's free. In my case, I'm going to use number 14 out of 16 available slots. I then am going to make sure that the microphone is turned on. And my voice will be the representation of how you are going to be playing. Now you're going to be playing pretty much at your maximum levels or your loudness, or you can play a little louder, okay? So that you can set it up. And what you have to do, and this might be a little bit of a test back and forth between until you get the levels of close to being proper. But the thing that we want to take a look at is the top button here. This is called the gain knob, and what it does is basically plays with the sensitivity. It's not the volume, it's the sensitivity of the inputs to what you're putting in. Now we know that we play soft and we play loud, and we want that dynamic in there. We want soft parts of our music, we want loud parts of our music, but we need to set the maximum levels. So we don't want to go too low, where we were too low, and it doesn't come out at low quality, and we don't want to go too high, where we push it into distortion, which is not good. So how do we do that? Let's simulate the fact that my voice is going to be the accordion sound, let's say, and I'm going to be making noises into the microphone so that I can set the proper gain level. So how do we do that? We start by turning up the gain. Now you notice these, my levels are zeroed out. What I'm looking for on this particular mixer is this little light down here. And we're going to want to look at what it says. It says at the peak, we're looking at a +10. So if this is solid red, we're looking at +10. Now I know this mixer, and the reality is that it's not quite that accurate. You're going to be hitting +10 when it's rock solid. So when it's flickering, you're a lot closer to 0 than you might want to know. So what we're going to do is we're going to start speaking into the microphone and turning up the gain knob, so that the goal is to try to light this little peak light down here. Nothing's heard because this is still set to 0. These are set to 0. So my outputs are set to 0 still. So nothing would be coming through the speakers yet. So what I'm going to do is let's just turn this up, and we'll start talking to the microphone. Check. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. 2, 2. There is that light. I'm going to purposely go maximum. so that when I talk all the time, it's just peaking red, and that is not good. Let me see if I can zoom into that just a little bit. Okay, so you can see it's just peaking right red. Red, 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 that's way too much. Right here, if I was to hear this through speakers, I'd be just totally blasted distortion. Not good at all. What I want to do is I want it to just flick every now and then at my loudest peaks. So 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Now it's disappeared. 2, 2. I want a little bit. 2, 2, 2. There we go. 1, 2, 2. Now, the next thing we want to do is I want to take my master faders and we set them at unity, which is 0 dB. I'm not going to go into it now, but this is where the mixing board is not adding volume and it's not taking volume. So it's at its level, whatever we're putting into it, that's what it's putting out. And that's good. We want to have a little bit of play there. How can we tell if anything's coming out on our meters? Well, that's where we take this line here and we start cranking it up. I start talking 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 2, 3. Here we go. 1, 2. Let me crack this up all the way to the top. 1, 2, 2, 2. So you see we're going a little bit too deep into the red. If I take a look at those meters and we just try to, let's see if I can just zoom in on them a little bit closer. And here we go. 1, 2, 2. That's way too much, right? So we know that we're not over peaking them here, because we're not, if I'm looking at my red button, which is, I'm not sure if you can see it anymore, but because I'm zoomed in a little bit too much, that's okay. I have my levels on the fader, that's channel 14. I have the fader set to maximum. So that's this one right here. So if I'm going to go 2, 2, and I'm really going too hard, I know I'm not pushing this channel into the reds here. 1, 2, okay, so I'm just touching it. I'm going to lower this level. So I'm just drop this down a little bit and then watch here. 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. I'm sort of peaking at the 0. 1, 2, 1, 2. Now even then, you got to know your equipment. I know that I can go and peak this up to about a +2 here and still be safe in terms of my volume. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 2. Oh, that's it. 2. Here we go. That's about where I want it. That's the proper way to set volume levels on this setup. What you want to do, what your goal is you want maximum volume to be coming out of here to go into your computer without pushing it into distortion. That's the proper way to do your gain structure. All right. Now, we've gone through all of this, and thanks so much for sticking through with me all the way up till this point. You are now going to see the fruits of all your labors appear, because the only thing that's really left is, if you wanted to, you could just sit down and record your music and then hear it. Now, just like everything else, we can take something up and take it up to the next level. So what most people do is after they record, they do some post-processing. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to just show you, this is me playing the first track, and surprise, we're going to add a second instrument. And then after this, let's take a look at the finished product. I'm going to skip all the post-processing section. Let's show you the final product. Hope you enjoy.